This video is on characterization in Euripides Bacchae and how that is highlighted in performance. A significant caveat about analysing characterization, especially things like internal motivations, is that these characters have no lives outside the text. As such, many analytical approaches to plays are often criticised for reading too far into them, analysing fictional characters as if they are real people. In this video, wherever I discuss internal motivation, it's because I believe there is significant evidence from the text itself to suggest it. The present one is a far from exhaustive approach, and I encourage you to do your own research and form your own opinions about how the characters are presented. Almost every production of Bacchae will vary in how they characterise the various roles, and a good exercise in analysing characterisation is to watch productions or scenes from them and look at how the actors communicate aspects of the character through performance. Is Pentheus looking at the stranger when he thinks no one can see him? What sort of a look is it? Is Cadmus a blustering politician or a sad old man? We can glean a lot from the text itself, but analysing characterisation will be incredibly benefited by looking at the play in performance. As this is an incredibly broad topic, and to stop this video from being half an hour long, I'll do a case study of Cadmus, to show how changing aspects of his line delivery can entirely change his characterisation. While this video will mainly analyse Cadmus, each character can be presented differently based on how they deliver lines and present themselves on stage, especially Pentheus and Dionysus. Another good exercise in exploring characterisation is pairing up and delivering exchanges between these two, for example 778 to 846, the opening of the costuming scene, and seeing how changing the tone of certain lines can change the atmosphere of the scene, and how you characterise Pentheus and Dionysus. As the named characters appear elsewhere in myth, as is the case in almost every Greek tragedy, it's important to note that their characterisation is unique to this play. While there may be similarities to other presentations of them, for example with other incarnations of Dionysus, including the Dionysus of comedy, this video is analysing how they are specifically shown in Euripides' text. As characterisation is very dependent on the text itself, this video will have less references to secondary scholarship. Although there has been a lot of work done on characterisation, I think it's helpful to extrapolate what we can from the text itself. Cadmus has the potential to be portrayed as either a reverent old man trying his best to appease the gods, or as an insincere character who gets found out. His character is most often portrayed as the former, but there's some evidence in the text to validate the second reading, such as his daughters assuming he made up the story about Semele sleeping with Zeus. For my mother's sisters, the last who should have done so, said that Dionysus was no son of Zeus, but that she had been bedded by a mortal, and then, by a clever invention of Cadmus, ascribed her sexual misdeeds to Zeus. He is part of the royal family of Thebes, which has resisted Dionysus. As the founder of Thebes itself, as well as his oikos, his destruction is the key to Dionysus' success in refounding a new Dionysiac Thebes. Ancient scripts, unlike modern ones, do not contain stage directions, nor do we have introductions or notes left behind by the playwrights. We generally tend to take characters' words at face value. However, as words were performed, hand gestures and the distance between the bodies of characters, and even props and elements of costume can change the colouring of how certain lines are delivered. Without considering the play and performance, we lose the potential variety and characterisation that such extra-textual elements can offer. I'll give a few hypothetical examples in relation to the character of Cadmus to show you how such performative elements can impact the meaning of the text and alter how we think about him. I've had to think along these lines when I was directing the Oresteia at Warwick in 2025 to 2026. Many ancient plays were performed again and again, so we should always be open to the possibility of different approaches to the same scenes. Let us consider Cadmus's costume and mannerisms. We know from Pentheus' line that Cadmus is carrying an ivied staff, presumably a thyrsus. However, the truth in his wearing the livery of the god, as he tells Tiresias, can be played with, as Tiresias is blind. The play is generally interested in themes of seeing, reality, and perception. If a director wanted to explore this theme further, they could do this through Cadmus's costume. If Cadmus is to be presented as truly devout in his worship, then giving him a thyrsus as the Maenads use is one way to show this. However, if his attitude is more compromised, then having a fake thyrsus, for example some ivy wrapped around a walking aid, might help to convey this. This interpretation of his attitude is in line with him trying to costume Pentheus, who we know doesn't agree Dionysus exists, immediately after reminding him of the death of Actaeon, which he suffered due to openly transgressing against the gods. You can see the miserable death of Actaeon. Let this not be your fate. Come here, let me garland your head with ivy. This is a hypothetical and rather extreme example, which I do not find very likely, because we would expect the chorus to have picked up on any incongruences in Cadmus's behaviour. However, we don't know if the chorus themselves were reacting in a way that would suggest that his behaviour is slightly out of the ordinary for a Maenad. Another way the characterisation of Cadmus can change entirely is in his mannerisms when he speaks to Tiresias, as they are alone and Tiresias cannot see his actions. If a director is choosing to show Cadmus as more duplicitous, then his mannerisms can contradict what he is saying. Subtle gestures can be used to display a character's internal feelings, especially if they contradict what they are otherwise presenting to the world. His first line to Tiresias, "Dearest friend, how glad I was, while still in the house, to hear your words, wise words coming from a wise man," can have entirely different readings for Cadmus's character based on how he acts delivering it. If he gently grasps Tiresias by the arm, attempting to be close to him, then his words will appear genuine to the audience. Unfortunately, unlike modern actors, ancient actors did not have the luxury of facial expressions, because they were wearing masks which covered their whole head. This is why proxemics may be useful. If he maintains his distance, and the friendly intonation doesn't match his body language, then the audience might know from his first lines that his intentions may not be entirely sincere. His interaction with Pentheus is another moment which can change his characterization. If the director chooses to characterize Cadmus as being somewhat insincere and not entirely convinced about the Dionysian worship, then they could have him convey this in the scene with Pentheus. For example, if he takes Pentheus aside after he says, "My lad, Tiresias has given you good advice," he can more openly express his true feelings away from Tiresias, especially if he speaks in hushed tones. He could nod or nudge Pentheus as he says, "Even if this god does not exist, as you maintain," to imply that he agrees the god does not exist. Delivering the line like, "Even if this god does not exist, as you maintain, you should say that he does, and tell a wholesome lie. Thus, Semele will have thought to be given birth to a god, and your whole family will win honour," rather than, "Even if this god does not exist, as you maintain, you should say that he does, and tell a wholesome lie. Thus, Semele will have thought to have given birth to a god, and your whole family will win honour," can entirely change a sentence's intentions. In the first, he's trying to encourage Pentheus to play along in order for them all to win honour. In the second, he's exasperatedly trying to reason with his grandson who doesn't believe in the god. Gestures and proxemics can further aid these changes in intonation, which again will vary on whoever plays Cadmus. These are all aspects of his characterization that would only come across in performance, reminding us how vital it is that these plays are considered as plays, rather than just texts. Based on how you characterize Cadmus in this scene, the emotional impact later in the play when he's punished by Dionysus will be completely different. After his fate is prophesied, Cadmus attempts to bargain with Dionysus. "We recognize this, but you chastise us too harshly. Gods ought not to be like mortals in their tempers." If you chose to characterize Cadmus as sincere in his worship, then this presents him as a desperate man trying to reason with a power outside of his control, and shows Dionysus as an irrational, possibly excessively brutal god. If he was characterized as a less than sincere character, then the bargaining can seem far more like a child who has gotten caught attempting to get out of trouble, trying to reason his way out of a fate that it deserved. This characterization would make Dionysus seem far more likeable and a more just character. Again, this is almost entirely based on how actors choose to deliver lines. Does he drop to his knees and try and grovel before the god he worshipped, or is he angrily arguing his innocence when the audience knows he's guilty? This also shows how the characterization of one character can impact the characterization of others. Tiresias being lied to would provoke more sympathy and make him seem somewhat paradoxically gullible for a prophet. He can see the future clearly but can't see that his friend is mocking him. Dionysus can be presented as a just divine figure, or irrational and cruel based on the behaviour of those he is punishing. To recap, characterization is an incredibly broad topic and is central to how you understand the play. Without considering the play and performance, you lose the potential for significant variations in characterization which are not present explicitly in the text. How a character is characterized is dependent on their actor, who can entirely change the tone of whole scenes and the meaning of lines by altering their intonation, gestures, or positioning on stage. This reminds us of the value of considering these plays as they were, in performance, rather than as the books they survive as. There's no real bibliography for this one, as it's mainly my own interpretations of how you could present the character, but please do have a go at the exercises that I've suggested to further your understanding of how characterization can change in performance, and thank you so much for watching.